have the opportunity for you to buy tracing paper right from when you are ordering. You can buy the knifeless tape and you can buy the tracing paper. And the reason the tracing paper is nice is that I draw the shape out and then I can put the shape on top of the skin, and it just helps me trim it down so I know roughly where it's gonna go, or not even roughly, but it gives me a really good idea of how to position the skin. And that way I end up cutting very accurately when I'm trimming it down. So from here, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this out, and then I can lay that on top of the skin, and then I can position it. All right, we're back. And so I've trimmed my tracing paper, so I have a fairly accurate shape of the IBANEZ GIO shape here. And now, I have all this real estate, but it's finding the positioning that I want. And I mean, I could do that if I wanted to. So yeah, I could do that, couldn't I? So I've got to make sure that we don't have, there's a little bit of writing in here, so I got to make sure that I don't mess with that. But I'm kind of liking this. So I'm thinking this is going to be it right here. So I have my little pieces of tape. I'm going to add a couple more. One more here. And now from here, what I can do is I can trim. Now, when it comes to trimming, I'm not trimming right to the edge. I don't want to be that close. I'm about 1/4 of an inch around. So I have a little bit of play. But yeah, but at least I have my shape here, and I know that I know how much room I have to work with. So here we go. All right, there we go. So now we have our skin sort of trimmed down, so it's going to be a little bit easier to place accurately. If you've watched any of my previous tutorial videos, you know that I actually demonstrate 3 different ways to trim your guitar body. Well, guess what? I actually have a 4th one. And this one, it actually is probably the best way to do a guitar that has the square edges the way that this Ibanez model has. It's very square. There's no bevel like a Strat. And in order to trim, you can see that there's a slight bit of white, but that's really, really hard to do with the knifeless tape. So what I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 4th method that it involves me putting the skin on, and then I'm actually going to top trim using the edge of the body. So the knife will pass and follow the edge of the body, and it'll actually give me a pretty good cut. And then I'm probably going to come in and then trim a little bit of this to just expose a little bit of the white. So there's 2 steps to the trimming, but for these square edges, it's probably the best way. So I'm going to lay the skin and then I'm going to trim. So now that I've decided how I'm going to trim, it's time to place my skin on the body. And that involves using a little bit of tape to hold it in place. Once I know where I want to put it, I'm taping it down. So I have a piece here, I have a piece here. I haven't put a piece here yet, and I'll explain why in a sec. But once you do that, if you follow this method, once you do that, tip it over, turn it over, and actually just look from behind just to make sure that in your trimming, you actually have enough skin still left around the edges, because sometimes when you're looking above, you don't know whether something is really close to the edge, and you can shift something a little bit, you can shift the skin, and if that happens, then you might mess up. So if you flip it over like this, you can see whether your positioning is good. And once you determine that your positioning is good, you can go back and you can turn it back over and you can start laying the skin. All right, it's time to skin this Ibanez. All right, so what we need to do is we need to separate the skin from the backing. So once we do that, I pull it forward about that much and I trim the backing paper about this much. So from here, all we're going to do is we're literally going to put it back in place. And I just use my hand. Some guys use a squeegee, but I just use my hand. And keep in mind too that this vinyl is very easy to use. If you were to get an air bubble, you can just lift it up and reposition. Okay, so now with this in place, I can now remove these pieces of tape. Okay, and now I'm going to pull it forward. And literally all I'm doing now is I'm just going to push a little bit at a time. And I'm just going across with my hand, and I'm just pushing it down. And what I do stress when doing this is to go slow, because now it seems like, wow, everything is on. I can just pull it off and I can just put the rest of it on. But I still, after having done hundreds of these, I still go slow, because if you were to rush and get an air bubble, you might try pull it, and you can stretch this, and there's no point in rushing. It just takes minutes. So what's a couple of extra minutes to make sure that your skin is on correctly? You know? So taking your time, patience is the key to a lot of things, especially applying the skin. And this is down. I mean, that's as good as it's going to get. So next is we're going to start trimming.